just about to go to sleep when I remembered something from I don't know, like 2018. And I thought it would be a funny story to tell. Um, when I was 10, yeah, that's probably a fair estimate. But realistically, I was probably like 5 or 6. Um, I got disenfranchised by religion because um, I can go all the way back to the beginning of when it really started. I had the dream of being a world traveler. I saw a big map and I was sitting down studying it and looking at it, and I was like, I want to go there, I want to go there. We're here right now, but there's places all the way over there. I want to see what it all looks like. And then someone told me, you can't do that. You need to get passports and stuff. You need to get money to travel and stuff. And I thought, well, that's really unfair. I'm born onto this earth. I'm here. I exist. I didn't really ask to fucking exist. And now I have to pay to fucking walk around the place where I am. So me and my little kid brain, this shit didn't make sense to me. So I thought, what if we could just do away with all that stuff? And then I asked, well, why do we have all this stuff? And can't we just change these things? Because it seems really unfair. And someone told me, well, that's something that's up to politics. And I remember like deciding for myself that this is a really easy problem to solve. I'm just gonna get everybody together, get us all on the same page, we'll talk it out, and then we'll solve the passport problem. I decided that the easiest way to get over the problem was not by getting a passport, but by unifying the world and diminishing the borders. That was just the way that my brain thought. It didn't think that, like, okay, let me adhere to these systems and get a passport and, like, play within the system that it was set up. It thought, nah, man, we gotta change the system because that's some fucked up shit. I'm born here, I live here, I exist. I should be allowed to exist without a financial burden placed upon me. Especially in today's day and age of automation. I remember when I was flipping burgers in high school, and I told my dad, I was like, dude, they're gonna have burger flipping robots like before I graduate high school. He was like, that's bullshit, you're fucking lying. And little did he know, I told him that fact because I literally saw a post about a burger flipping robot. So then I went and I found the post and I was like, oh yeah, that's bullshit. And then he went and found the post on his own too, because that was like a big, like, moment for us, I guess, like a rationalization for his subconscious that his offspring may be right about something that he doesn't know about. So then when it was fed to him on his own feeds and he saw it, he remembered and went, oh, this is what Adam talked about. Oh my God, they really are making robots and stuff. But anyways, yeah, my first train of thought was, let's get a commission together to restructure the borders on Earth. And then, I don't know, maybe like that weekend or maybe like a week or so later, we went to church and then they started going off about the Antichrist. And I remember it was Pastor fucking Schmidt going off about the Antichrist, saying the Antichrist is the one that will unify the earth. and, you know, destroy all borders. And I'm like, yeah, that's a good thing, though. I felt very called out, and I was like, this guy doesn't understand shit, because, like, why does he think having borders is a good thing? He's just indoctrinated into the worldview of, like, the necessity of borders, and he can't see his way outside of the system that's already been set in place, and that there could be a better system. I'm like a little, like, fucking 5-year-old rationalizing this in my own mind, and I'm sitting there in church, and I'm like, oh shit, I felt very called out. I was like, oh fuck, he's talking about me. He started, like, going off about the Antichrist, and I got real hot and sweaty. I'm like, he's talking about my plans for the future. He's talking about, like, my dreams and aspirations that I've had that I only kept to myself, that nobody else should know about. Yeah, he's up there on a pulpit fucking admonishing me, a little baby fucking 5-year-old sitting in the crowd, because I have a dream of a unified earth. Ugh. That's when the disenfranchisation started. And I was like, you know what, man? Everybody around me was not everybody, but there were, like, people in my life who were admonished for believing that they had mental shit going on, and they believed that they had a messiah complex. There was like 2 or 3 people in my life that happened to. So this also kind of padded into the realization where I was like, you know what, man, they're fucking admonishing all these people who are just trying to, like, channel the spirit of love and help and all that shit. Fuck it, I'll take up the mantle. I'll be the Antichrist. That's me. And that's who I've always kind of, like, believed myself as inside of my own kind of, like, head. Especially because my fucking initials, AJC, Anti-Jesus Christ. That's a little on the nose. I even asked my fucking mom, I was like, did you guys, like, who fucking named? And she's like, your brother named you. I'm like, did we plan this? Did anybody fucking put 2 and 2 together? Or was I the first one to notice this because I have to carry the name? I said, fuck it, yo, dude, let me just take up the fucking mantle. And through time, I've learned a lot about it. Like, for instance, Antichrist and Christ are essentially the same thing. If you revert back to the scriptures, they say, I think somewhere in John, that Jesus will come back once as a lamb, twice as a lion. I don't know if it's in John. It might be somewhere else in the Bible, so don't quote me on that. But that's the biggest thing is once as a lamb, twice as a lion. Lambs and lions are complete opposites of each other. So the form of, like, what was the Messiah for the ancient world is inherently the opposite of the form of what a Messiah would be needed for in the modern world. Ancient traditions have to deal with, like, inherently survivalistic situations, and we've kind of, at this point in time, conquered survival, or at least learned the algorithm or the pattern to conquer survival, just like how we learned the pattern or the algorithm of agriculture. So, like, the lessons needed for today's day and age are antithetical to the lessons that were needed for yesterday's day and age. And that's what the terminology really comes about, is that it makes sense in the top-down perspective that things needed to change over time, so the kind of essence of what things are kind of being contained, the container that contains the essence, would change over time as well. And eventually, because the thing was introduced, because religion and all that stuff was introduced, the container was introduced, it changed society to such a point where now we need a new container. And this has been a cause for me to go into a lot of theological research, because I'm like, I resonate with it. Reality is weird with me, dude. Reality gets really weird. Like, there's so many examples. Just go back to previous episodes. I try to point them all out. Like finding a cat in the middle of the street when you need hate a cat the most, or um, the biggest weird one is like I will almost miss a turn, and then somebody will like put their blinker on in front of me, and it's for the turn that I have to take, and then I look down, like it knocks me out of the flow state that's gonna make me miss the turn, and then they turn off their blinkers, and then they go a different way, and I'm like, what's that like, level of coordination? That's a question I ask a lot because it comes up a lot of like, whoa, there's some kind of multi-layered coordination going on that to a degree humans can't even be capable of, because it's like, how do you coordinate bugs and animals to fucking resonate and like come to a person? You can't really necessarily do that. But yeah, why am I talking about all of this? Well, I had a very atheistic stance for a while there, because I was like, well, religion is going to vilify me for what I am, so I must learn what I am without religion. And so I kind of cast off religion and wanted to find out who I was in its absence and who I was as my essence and core person. So even though I was being brought to church and religious education and all that stuff, I was like actively rejecting it in favor of my own self. Because my own self, deep down inside, I believe that I'm the Antichrist. So I'm trying, I took a very a childish approach to it at first, where it was like, everything they're saying is wrong. That was how I approached it at first, because that was my experience with it. If I had a dream and then you told me my dream was wrong, so it's actually not me who's wrong for having a dream, it's you who's wrong for not being able to dream larger than what you've been told to dream. Can't villainize somebody for having a dream, because we all dream. And some people, their dream is fucking antithetical to what a harmonious, peaceful, fucking collaborative society looks like. And you gotta fucking pick those people out, like fucking creepy priest Schmidt. He got relocated. Wink. Anyways, yeah, he got relocated, so that was another one of those things where, I don't know if I like religion, but it kind of like went through the motions with me and kind of kept me in CCD, even though I would like play devil's advocate a lot. I would try my best to stump the teachers, because I'm like, you people aren't as smart as you think you are. You're not as like enlightened as you think you are, especially because your job is not to be enlightened, it's to enlighten others. And sometimes when you're enlightening others, you're taking on a load for yourself. And they just had like random people volunteer, so I didn't always get good teachers. But I do remember I had this one good teacher where he was like, someone asked like, how do you rationalize science and religion? And he was like, science is a way of explaining the intricacies of God's wonder. It doesn't diminish the fact of how amazing all of this stuff is. It only adds to it. And then he pointed at a splinter in his finger, and he said, this splinter in my finger, you can look at it medically and say that it's gonna get infected and my body will push it out, and then the splinter will come out of my finger naturally, or I could pull it out with tweezers. Some people would call that process of your body recognizing a foreign object and ejecting it for the betterment of the complete creature, the overall system, that's miraculous in and of itself. That's a daily miracle that you can get to see. And then he went all into how, Jesus was able to heal people, but now with modern medicine and science and stuff like that, average normal people are able to heal other people in miraculous ways every single day. And that was a really like holistic approach that kind of stuck with me, especially the splinter thing, because he was like, there's two ways that you can look at it, and both ways are right. One way you could look at it like God designed the system in order to recognize foreign objects and like protect itself, and immune systems are the work of the Holy Spirit and stuff. On the other hand, you can look at it very scientifically and say, well, like, the immune system evolved over periods of time, and actually we as modern humans got our immune systems from Neanderthals. I think that's true. It was the interbreeding of Neanderthal and Homo sapien, which created Homo sapien sapien with an advanced immune system and intelligence. And all of this stuff can be looked at in two perspectives, but you can choose whatever perspective enthralls you the most. Like, if the wonder and majesty of God's kingdom and just like fucking looking out across a field is enough for you, that's enough for you. But if you're into like ornithology, the study of birds, the scientific study of birds, and you're looking across a field, you're going to be looking at that field differently than somebody who's looking at the field as just a field that, is the magical, wonderful creation of God. The ornithologist is taking a microscope to that wonder and saying, I want to look at only the birds in the field. And then they look around for all the birds all around. And that doesn't mean that they're not looking at the trees and the grasses. It just means that they're looking at the trees and the grasses for irregularities of things that are not trees and grass. Just like how, white blood cells will look for irregularities around your body and attack things that are not of your body or where they're not supposed to be, or invaders and pathogens and stuff like that. People who study, quantum particle physics are focusing on a very specific, narrow window of the wonder of what it means to exist. Because whether you believe in God or not, it's just a fucking mind-blowing, just kind of miraculous thing that we exist in and of itself. I mean, you can get real nihilistic about it and be like, existence sucks, but like, the fact that even if it's just a random universe and all of these fucking chemicals just came together to make people, that's mind-blowing. And then it's not like these chemicals come together and make people the same way every single time, like a hydra that, clones itself. We all have these like differences and similarities where it's like the variable for what a human can be contains so much multitudes that you can have two things that look almost exactly the same and they're completely different just because of the nature of what it means to be a human that's growing and evolving through time. You can have two people that, say that you genetically cloned yourself and then raised yourself because you thought that you had a crappy childhood and you wanted to see what it would be like if you had a good childhood. So you clone yourself and then you raise yourself and you try to give yourself the best childhood possible. But then you come to find out that, this, that, or the other thing. It's an inherently flawed experiment to run on yourself, because it's not like you're going back in time. The time period in which you're introducing that clone is fundamentally different from the time period in which you were raised and put together, formulated, fucking nurtured. There you go. I mean, you could do what they tried to do to Steve Rogers when they took him out of the ice and like recreate your childhood environment almost perfectly down to a T, and then substitute certain variables over time. But then this would also maybe suggest that you have multiple clone operations running with multiple variables, and at that point, you shouldn't be looking into cloning. You should be looking into multiverse theory, because it's a way easier path in order to test variables than fucking recreating an entire micro universe inside of the universe. What you do is you just look into the log file, the data file of how variability is played out over time. There's like, for every infinite amount of universes that you exist in, there's an infinite amount of universes that you don't exist in parallel universe theory. That's the true concept of infinity, is literally it's incomprehensible because anything and everything is possible. So if everything and anything is possible, then technically you can dial into a specific universe. If you were wondering if variable A, B, and C were changed, how would I look? And then you can dial into what that timeline would look like. And there's this thing, supposedly the Vatican like stole or confiscated a whole bunch of fringe technology throughout the years, and they lock it all away in the catacombs, not the catacombs, the basement. They lock it away in the basement of the Vatican, in the archives, the Vatican archives. And there's this thing called the chronomat or something. I know, chronometer. Basically, it's this device that some guy invented like back in time, and supposedly the device can like allow you to look backwards and forwards in time, and there's supposedly this fixed point in time where all of the variable timelines collapse into one single timeline. And you can look at that through the lens of like, if we want to go back to Marvel and stuff like that, you can look at that through the lens of like the sacred timeline. Everything is going to collapse down into that one non-variable timeline, which is kind of cool. Which is also another reason why I was kind of disenfranchised by religion, because I was like, you guys are keeping so much, not even the technology, but the data. They're keeping so many like files and papers and things cooped up and locked away in their archives. And maybe when I was younger, this was a little bit ridiculous, but now that I'm older and now that like digitization has taken root more, I feel as though they should digitize the Vatican archives and make them available for all people online to peruse through and, you know, get to know their faith a little bit better, rather than fucking locking them away in some basement somewhere. That's like my big gripe. And you're like, man, you sure do have a lot of gripes right now, but I haven't gotten to the biggest gripe of why he even started this fucking conversation, of what made me laugh and sit down and say I want to record a podcast. So I was pretty much played the devil's advocate in all my, they called it CCD class, but it's just basically like religious education class. I think when you're Catholic, they call it CCD, but we had this lady who was the director, and her name was Miss, I'll just call her Miss Cough. She fucking hated me. She was mean. She had like this thick Brooklyn accent, and she just looked like a quintessential Brooklyn Jew and acted like one too. To the point where like all the kids that she taught would make jokes about it. Like, why did they put a Jew in charge of our fucking religious education? And this one time she like told us a story about how she like put a pillow over her mom's head when she was in hospice. And then she stopped herself, like mid-pillowing. We're all sitting around like, who the fuck let this lady be around kids? What the fuck? And she's like, she was trying to use it as a story to show like God can come and like find you at your darkest moments, I guess, where she was like fucking gonna do it. And then she was like, God told me not. God told me to take the pillow away. And we're all sitting around like, you really went as far as fucking putting the pillow first before you realize, like, that's just a conscience, lady. That's just like human empathy. That's not fucking the voice of God telling you not to pillow somebody to death. That's just literally fucking your own human empathy and fucking like self-preservation. So that was like a really fucked up story that she told us, and she always did this like really kind of like fucked up stuff. It was just like we were flabbergasted. We would always make fun of her, but like it never resulted in any action. And then I got my confirmation. And she fucking felt the need to walk up to me on my confirmation day. She's like, you know, you don't really deserve this, but we're doing it as a favor to your mother because she's such a good and active person in the church. And I went, thanks. Everybody else in my family like blows up at shit like that, and I just went, all right, thanks. That's cool of you. She expected to get a rise out of me, and I was just thankful. I was like, oh, that's so cool of you. Like, dude, you know that I don't care about this stuff, and you know that I don't. You know that, like, if anything, I'm exactly as I said I was. And so I kind of had a stick in my craw because of that. I just didn't like her. She's just a piece of shit person. And I kind of knew this and felt this. And at this point in time, I kind of like knew this. And I was like, I'm so glad I'm getting my confirmation. I'm done with this shit. And then like the next year, after we're all out of religious ed in my like class age group, a story went around that she got fired. And everybody's like, what the fuck? How did she get fired? Why did it take this long to get her fired? Like, everybody was like a little bit like complaining because like she sucked. Why did you take, what did she do that, you know, she sucked so much for us. Like, what the fuck did she do to get fired now? And apparently, she, some kid was talking and out of turn, I guess. And, they do this thing where they take all the individual classes and they have them all come together in one big room and you like kind of just be together. But it can be a little bit overwhelming, especially when you have all those kids in the environment trying to control them all. And naturally the kids were kind of chatty. And there's this one kid that was, you know, chatty, kept speaking up. And she kind of singled him out. She was like, what are you, retarded? Shut up already. What, are you just not understanding me? Are you retarded or something? And it turns out the kid was mentally deficient. Oh, the kid was actually mentally disabled. And she didn't know, because I guess he was passing. And so everybody got pissed at her, but then the kid like told his parents and she got fired right away. So we were all sensing this fucking evil in her. All of the kids that were her students were like sensing this evil and like telling our parents and shit, being like, we just don't like her, she sucks. And they were like, you just don't like religion. And in reality, it was like, no, you just really had a legitimately evil fucking person in charge of your religious education. Like, you did not vet that person properly, and you didn't spend enough time around them, and you didn't fucking check in on them randomly enough to know the level of their personality and know exactly how she was treating the fucking kids. But year after year after year after year after year, all these fucking same kids had the same complaint that this lady is a fucking jerk. She's a fucking meanie bobini. And it took her, you know, crossing that one final fucking line, putting the pillow over the face, and then facing the repercussions in the situation with the pillow over the face. Her own limbic system told her, "Hey, what the fuck are you doing?" and made her stop. But she's just so ignorant that she couldn't perceive that she does the same thing over and over and over and over and over in different ways every single day to people. She's always putting the pillow over somebody because she was always putting people down around her. But she fucking found religious vindication, so she thought that she could put others down because it was like God was ordaining her to do it. And she just had to cross that final fucking line where somebody who had all of their checks, all of their fucking boxes checked and all of their shit in order, to say that, hey, I'm vindicated to act and be the way that God made me. And she tried to say, you know, like, God didn't make you right, fucking be the way that I want you to be. And, you know, he had that fucking moral authority to say, you know what, no, actually God made me the way I am, and you're the person casting dispersions and false judgment. She got her fucking job taken away. So that shit was wild. That was the biggest vindication I could have ever felt. Because, like, we were saying she's evil this entire time, and then now she finally fucking got her comeuppance. That was the band, very sweet, very savory, very delicious. And I guess that was my main impetus to want to sit down and try and tell that story right now about, like, religion and fucking all that bullshit. Because, you know, sometimes the most fucking vile people gravitate towards religion in order to make themselves feel better, but they never really do the true internal work to earn feeling better or to change themselves in any actual capacity. They just use the shield of the religion to fucking continue acting the same way that they were acting without actually ever self-reflecting, changing, or becoming or striving to become a better person. And those are the people that I think need God's grace the most, because they need these active intercessions of God's will in order to fucking wake them up. And if it's really got to be something as loud and in your face as fucking insulting the wrong kid and facing the consequences, I'm for it. I'm down for it. I'm here for it. And I think that's where I'll leave it. So peace out, Girl Scout.